Ijeoma had always been a kind-hearted woman, generous to a fault, and deeply loyal to those she held dear. From a very young age, she had shared everything with her closest friend, Adaora, treating her as a sister. Their bond was rooted in years of shared memories, and Ijeoma had always believed they would support each other through every joy and hardship. Her kindness extended beyond friendship. She genuinely wanted the best for Adaora, even when it meant putting her friend's desire before her own. Selflessness was precisely what led her to make a fateful decision early in their friendship, one that would eventually haunt her in ways she could have foreseen. Years ago, a wealthy and influential man had taken an interest in Ijeoma, a man who could offer security, comfort, and the promise of a stable future. Adaora met him first, hoping he would notice her and perhaps see her as a potential wife. But the man's attention was drawn instead to Ijeoma, enchanted by her kindness and gentle nature. Adaora felt his rejection deeply, but she managed to hide her disappointment, feigning happiness for Ijeoma. Seeing how much her friend wanted the man's affection, Ijeoma, who had yet to develop feelings for him, made a heartfelt decision. She stepped aside, encouraging Adaora to pursue him, believing that her friend's happiness was more important. Though Adaora appeared grateful, this decision would later prove futile. The man quickly realized that Adaora's charm was merely superficial, her heart clouded by a selfish and envious nature. His interest in her waned as he saw through her exterior, recognizing that Adaora's character was as cold as it was prideful. He decided not to pursue her, leaving Adaora humiliated and resentful. In the wake of this failed courtship, Ijeoma found herself drawn to another man, a kind, compassionate soul who would eventually become her husband. Their love was pure and effortless, born of genuine respect and shared dreams. Ijeoma's marriage blossomed into a partnership built on trust and warmth, a source of joy and fulfillment that deepened with each passing year. For a time, she believed that her decision to step aside had been a blessing in disguise, leading her to the man who was truly meant for her. Ijeoma never suspected that Adaora harbored resentment. Unbeknown to Ijeoma, Adaora had long been envious, especially after watching Ijeoma marry the very man she had silently loved from afar. Adaora's unrequited affection turned bitter, a poison that grew as she watched Ijeoma build the life she had always dreamed of for herself. On the day of Ijeoma's wedding, Adaora saw her chance to act. In a moment alone, she handed Ijeoma a small cup of palm wine as a toast to her future. Ijeoma drank it without hesitation, never guessing the malevolent intent behind her friend's gesture. The drink had been laced with a dark substance Adaora had procured from a local healer, a substance meant to seal Ijeoma's womb, preventing her from ever bearing children. With a hidden smirk, Adaora congratulated her friend, all the while reveling in the twisted satisfaction that Ijeoma's happiness will soon wither. As the years passed, and Ijeoma found herself unable to conceive, she grew increasingly desperate. The weight of her infertility hung heavy on her, as family and friends began to voice their quiet disappointment and pity. Her husband's family grew impatient, and she felt the sting of judgment and shame in their eyes. Her husband, though outwardly supportive, became quieter, and a rift of sorrow and frustration began to grow between them. Adaora, ever the loyal friend, remained by Ijeoma's side, offering support and encouragement. She pretended to share in Ijeoma's pain, all the while feeding off her anguish. When Ijeoma began to consider the impossible, finding a surrogate, Adaora eagerly offered herself for the role, cloaking a malicious intent in the guise of a noble sacrifice. Ijeoma, feeling cornered and grateful, agreed, trusting her friend implicitly. Under the guise of friendship, Adaora bore a child for Ijeoma and her husband, ensuring she stayed close to Ijeoma's family, feeding her need for control over the life she had poisoned. Ijeoma and her husband cherished the baby girl born through Adaora's help. Yet Adaora, in her bitterness, saw this child as a possession, a mark of her influence and twisted triumph over Ijeoma's marriage. Years passed peacefully in Ijeoma's home, with her husband Emeka and their cherished daughter Amara at her side. Amara had always believed in love's power to overcome every obstacle. She was her parents' miracle child, a child her mother Ijeoma was told she would never have. When Amara was born, she was more than a daughter. She was her mother's lifeline, her father's pride, a living testimony to her parents' unbreakable bond. Ijeoma's friend Adaora had borne Amara for her, and from that moment on, Ijeoma's devotion to her daughter was total. But tragedy struck unexpectedly. Ijeoma's sudden death left Emeka devastated, his heart shattered by the loss of the woman who had been the love of his life. In the months that followed, Emeka was a broken man, pouring all love he once gave to Ijeoma into his daughter, who became his only solace. Yet the shadow of Adaora still loomed over them, and for her, Ijeoma's death was the opportunity she had secretly hoped for. Adaora, long consumed by envy and desire, moved in on Ijeoma's place with a determination that was almost frightening. She stepped into Ijeoma's shoes, taking on household responsibilities, offering comfort to Emeka, and subtly assuming the role she had coveted for years. She believed that finally she could have what she had always wanted: Emeka's love, his companionship, and the life Ijeoma had lived. But there was one truth she couldn't escape. Emeka's heart had died the day Ijeoma passed, and no one, not even Adaora, could rekindle the love that had left with her. Emeka, though appreciative of Adaora's help, couldn't love her as she had dreamed. The memory of Ijeoma haunted him. Her warmth, her kindness, and her unwavering loyalty were irreplaceable. He saw in Adaora only a shadow, an imitation of the life he once had, and his indifference stung her deeply. Frustrated by Emeka's inability to return her affections, Adaora began to feel trapped in the life she had fought so hard to claim. In a moment of anger and desperation, she threatened Emeka, declaring that she would reveal their daughter's true origin if he did not reciprocate her feelings. She believed this would give her leverage, that Emeka's fear of losing his daughter's love would bind him to her. But Emeka, weary and broken, showed no fear. The revelation had no power over him, and he told her as much with hollow eyes. The truth was, Emeka had already lost everything that mattered. Ijeoma's death had left him with a hollow shell, and the bond he had with his daughter was enough for him. Adaora, shocked by his indifference, unleashed the truth anyway. But to her greatest surprise, Emeka simply embraced his daughter and told her everything himself. When he confessed, his daughter, surprised but compassionate, offered her forgiveness with a gentle heart. She understood that her father's silence had been his way of protecting her, and her love for him remained steadfast. With her attempt to control Emeka thwarted, Adaora watched as the family she had tried to claim remained out of her reach. Emeka's health declined quickly in the months following. His grief, a quiet thief that stole his strength day by day. Soon, he passed away as well, reunited in spirit with the true love of his life, leaving Adaora alone with the legacy of her schemes. After the truth of Adaora's betrayal was revealed, whispers circulated through the community, forever linking her name to the shocking story of a woman who had borne a child for her friend only to betray her. People learned that Adaora's past decisions had left her unable to have more children, a consequence of severe complications during the childbirth she's undergone for Ijeoma. A stigma and scandal surrounding her actions, combined with her inability to bear more children, made her a pariah in her community. Suitors who once might have sought her companionship now kept their distance, wary of her tarnished reputation and haunted by the shadows of her past. Yet, in the midst of this, Adaora's daughter found it in her heart to forgive her. Moved by compassion, she decided to give her mother a fresh start, away from the shame and whispers that clung to her back home. She brought Adaora to the United States, where she now lives and works as a nurse, offering Adaora the support and dignity she had lost. In this new chapter, Adaora's son-in-law proved to be a kind and understanding man, welcoming her with open arms and treating her with warmth and respect. Despite Adaora's past, her daughter and her husband chose to give her a place in their lives, offering her the chance to rebuild and find a semblance of peace. At first, the house pulsed with warmth and laughter. Adaora was a godsend, taking care of meals, tending to household chores, and breathing life into their quiet home. As Amara worked tirelessly, splitting her paycheck to cover the mortgage, an unspoken bond began to grow between her mother and her husband. James saw in Adaora an understanding that felt almost hauntingly close to his own soul. A past weighed down by secrets and sacrifices, bound together by the glue of unfulfilled dreams. Adaora, with her ageless beauty, just 5 years older than James, was alluring and unattainable, yet somehow devastatingly within reach. They found comfort in each other, solace in shared silences and stolen glances. But then, the unthinkable happened. Adaora crossed the line. In the small hours of the night, feeling the loneliness creeping up on her, she gave in to the forbidden desire that had sparked between them. They believed it would be harmless, a moment's escapade, their quiet secret. She could not conceive after all. It was the irony of her life, the tragedy that had plagued her youth, and she was nearing menopause. There was no way she would become pregnant until she did. 5 months later, after strange sensation and symptoms, Adaora realized her worst fear. Panic clawed at her mind as she pieced together the moment that had led to this horrifying revelation. The bouts of nausea, the shifting weight of her body, the erratic heartbeats. She had assumed her erratic cycle was to blame, the early signs of menopause. But the truth was now undeniable. She was pregnant with her own son-in-law's child. The guilt consumed her, a poison slowly seeping into every fiber of her being. She could feel her daughter's happiness shattering with each passing day. Even though Amara was blissfully unaware of the storm about to engulf her life, how could she tell Amara the truth? And how could she keep it a secret? The life growing within her was proof of her betrayal, a horror she would carry with her until her dying breath. The darkness in the house deepened, a tension so thick it felt like the walls themselves were shrinking. James grew distant, trapped between guilt and shame, unable to look at his wife, unable to bear the knowledge of his actions. Adaora felt herself spiraling into despair, each day a new nightmare. Finally, one evening, Amara sensed the weight of the secrets around her, the stillness of her husband, the guarded eyes of her mother. She confronted them, pushing until the truth cracked the silence wide open. The revelation shattered her. Her voice, once strong and steady, broke into a raw, jagged sob that echoed through the house. Amara's mind spiraled, tangled in betrayal, horror, and a pain so sharp it felt like a dagger twisting inside her. The mother who had given her life had stolen her own happiness. Her husband, the man she loved, was complicit in a crime against her heart. Adaora fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness, the unborn child a mute witness to her agony. James, pale and remorseful, stood by, hollow-eyed, as if he too were waiting for Amara's wrath to consume him. But Amara could not bring herself to forgive, nor could she walk away. She was tethered to her own blood, her mother's sins now woven into her very existence. In a house once filled with love, the shadows now ruled, whispering reminders of betrayal and loss. With every breath, her heart was breaking, but the pain was deeper than heartbreaks. It was like watching her soul splinter, pieces of herself fading away with each passing second. Her mind drifted to her unborn sibling, an innocent yet tormented reminder of her mother's betrayal. It felt almost cruel, as though they were playing a twisted joke on her. The very woman who couldn't bear a child all these years ago, the mother who had given up on her dream of more children, was now carrying the child of Amara's own husband. It was a perverse cycle, a horrific irony that stabbed at her already wounded heart. Each day, Amara felt a gnawing emptiness consume her from within. She didn't know how to act around James, couldn't even look at him without feeling her stomach twist. Her voice, once full of warmth when speaking to her mother, had become sharp, brittle. She felt like a stranger in her own body, her hunger and despair transforming her into someone she no longer recognized. Every time she caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, she saw the toll this nightmare had taken on her. Sunken eyes, pale skin, lips set in a permanent grimace. Her thoughts turned dark, tinted by anger and sorrow. She thought about leaving, about cutting off the people she once loved. But the thought of abandoning her own mother, no matter how vile her actions, was unthinkable. She felt trapped. In a moment of desperation, she found herself writing a letter she would never send, pouring out every venomous thought that had consumed her since the truth had been revealed. She wrote of her dreams being torn apart, a future stolen by the two people she had loved most. She wrote of her bitterness, her envy towards a sibling she would never welcome, and the devastation that had been left in her soul. By the time she finished, her hands were trembling, tears staining the ink as she clutched the letter tightly. There were days when Amara barely felt alive, moving through her routine in a daze. Friends and co-workers noticed her change, but she brushed them off, knowing they could never understand the complexity of her suffering. The betrayal she endured was one that couldn't be mended with apologies. It was a wound that would scar her forever, leaving her uncertain if she could ever love or trust again. Amara began to think of love as a curse, a lie that marks the potential for cruelty and betrayal. She wondered if she could ever move past this horror. If her heart would ever heal from a betrayal so deep, it seemed to have poisoned her very soul. In quiet moments, she sometimes questioned if she would ever be whole again, or if, like her mother, she would live the rest of her days haunted by the shadows of her past, carrying the weight of broken trust and unspoken pain.